I'm Hilda Mansell, and I'm in Fittleton Manor, which is right in the middle of this tiny village, lovely village in Fiddleton. And we bought the house, my husband and I, Robert Mansell, bought this house over about 50 years ago. And we have brought up our children here, and we have had a lovely life here in this village with absolutely delightful people living here too. And we bought it from the St Aldwyn family. Originally they were Hicks Beach, and he was a farmer called Beach who married a Miss Hicks, and they were farmers, but they obviously did very well, and they built on this part of the house. This is the front part, which is in the time of William and Mary. Well, then they built Netherenden House as well, and he became, one member of the family became the Earl of St Aldwyn. He was made Chancellor of the Exchequer. At that time they owned Salisbury Plain as well, the whole of it. And so the government wanted it for army manoeuvres. And so he sold the Salisbury Plain to the government. And as he was Chancellor of the Exchequer, he wrote the cheque from the government to himself. And then he let it to twice, I think, people. And eventually he had two aunts, maiden aunts, and they were installed here and lived here happily. And they were quite characters, and I'm told one of them used to hold the steering wheel while the other one did brakes. And they were quite characters, and they were very good at helping people in the village. The two aunts of the Earl of St Aldwyn were called Lady Susan and Lady Victoria, and Victoria's godmother was Queen Victoria, and they eventually died, not in this house. And my husband and I bought this house. We fell in love with it as soon as we saw it. We bought it in 1968 for $19,500. It has 7 bedrooms, and I'm going to take you around with me to show you. This is the one of 8 bedrooms in this house, and this was our bedroom. And there are 2 what looks like cupboards, which were actually wig cupboards in the days of William and Mary. And there are shelves in there where they used to put their wigs, but we made it into somewhere where you could wash and also have a bath in the other one. And on the way I'm going to show you this. Now if I do that, there should be a bell ringing downstairs. And this is if you wanted a servant to come, and it would say which room downstairs they had to come to. This cupboard we made into a bathroom. Well, it's a very small bath. It was quite useful. This is the view from our bedroom window, which goes right across the plain as far as you can see, and across the livery, which is about 16 acres. And we bought this when we've been here a few years, and we continued to let it to people with horses, and we ran it as a livery. And you will be able to see the 2 pillars by the front gate and we put horses' heads on top. I'm now standing on the landing, halfway up the house. There are 2 bedrooms upstairs and a bathroom. And these stairs, which we used to polish, so it was always wise to have rubber-bottomed shoes, especially if you were running up and down, as I always was. And we had a Christmas tree at Christmas, which came up from the bottom right up to the top, and the children would lean over through the banisters and put the fairy on top. This is another bedroom looking out over the front of the house and in the William and Mary part of the house. And there is that lovely view there, and there is a door here. No, it was there really because it has the same panelling. And my daughter in France said that they used to have a kind of escape for the mistress to disappear if they heard the wife coming and going to disappear. I'm going to show you the airing cupboard, which is in here. And we used to keep our linen for the 8 beds in here. And next to it is another small room, which we used to clean our shoes in and keep cleaning things. I'm now showing you the way up to the attics. Well, we used them as attics, but in fact they were the servants' room. And they were quite big rooms with big cupboards and a view over the village. A bit rickety staircase, but you have to walk down carefully sideways. This was my 3rd daughter's bedroom, and it's the smallest bedroom, but there is room for a small 4-poster which she had. Well, at some point when the army were shooting off their guns, there was a very big gun which should only have been fired off when there was low cloud or a high cloud, I can't remember. But anyway, it was let off and it brought down the ceiling up there, but fortunately the 4-poster was underneath and it caught the plaster. But the press tried to get me to talk to them about this, and they were going to make up a story about the army doing damage. And my husband was in the army then, so of course it wasn't a good idea. So I got the 2 small children, put them on the Shetland, and we went next door for the day. This room was another bedroom, a spare bedroom, and we had a 4-poster there, and it looks out over the stables and the barn, and cupboards here which are hiding a basin, somewhere to hang your clothes. Somebody must have done this before we came. And we opened up the fireplaces, and in each room where there is one, a huge cupboard in here, which is where it's shelves. And I'm told that Lady Susan and Lady Victoria kept the heads of their big game in there. Stuffed, I may say. This room was built on at some point by the St. Aldwyn family in Victorian Victorian times. So they built this room and the one above. And they're the biggest rooms in the house. We used it as a sitting room with an open fireplace. So this was the kitchen when it was a farmhouse, and we took up the covering on the floor and discovered the original flagstones, which are Elizabethan. And the Arga was here when we arrived, and when we lived here there was an awful lot going on. It was quite difficult to get to the Arga to cook, because there was a Newfoundland cat, 4 children and all their saddles that they were cleaning. I'll tell you a bit about the garden. It is an acre of garden around the house, and so it's really private really. There's a big gate in the front though, it looks in, and next to the house is a large field, which is where we had various animals over the years. We started off with geese, and we had sheep for quite a long time, and we did everything that was needed to be done with them, like worming them and taking them off to be shorn in a horse box. And we later on had ponies for 2 of the children. We started off with Shetland. He used to follow me around the garden when I was weeding, and quite useful, good at cutting the grass around the edges of the vegetable garden. And the vegetable garden was big because we loved to eat vegetables, our own, and so much tastier than what you get in the supermarket anyway. And we had this Arga to cook on. I used to make lots of jam from the fruit in the garden, and we had various events, and which I will tell you about when we get to the barn. And we have made the kitchen a bit bigger because it seemed more useful like that. So we had parties where we used to entertain the families, the army families, where my husband worked at the Royal Signals camp, and we used to invite them over here and have a table full of children and the adults in the dining room. This is the laundry room, we called it, and obviously where we did all the washing and ironing and so on. And the floor is sloping because it was originally, when it was a farmhouse, this was the dairy. This beautiful Elizabethan barn, when we arrived, we really spent some time not doing anything to it for a few years, except that there were beams across, and so the hens used to fly up there and roost at night. And it was divided up into different areas, where probably they kept a cart horse down there, and they had, I know they had calves here at some point, and these benches, we've made them into benches, but they are actually for food for the calves they were rearing, and because they had quite a lot of farmland as well. And we had to restore, there was a floor across, another floor up, but it was in a very bad state and quite dangerous, and so we had to take that down. But we really wanted to do the minimum that we could to preserve this barn exactly how it was. So it is by no means, well, it's waterproof, but it's not very warm because there are gaps between the edge of the thatch and the wall. And we have had many events here, but everybody had to just wrap up. And one of them was we had wedding receptions, and very often people had a big barn as well, and they used this and they paid something towards it, and everything I made went towards the church. And we had an art exhibition, we had a nativity play. That was the most fun of all, because there's a little room, a sort of part of the end of the barn where they kept hay, and if you go up a ladder you can see there's a window that looks down, and that's where we had the innkeeper in the nativity play. And we have 2 lights each side, so this was like a stage, and the whole barn was full of people with children on their parents' backs because there was no room. And we had barn dances every Christmas, and this was the greatest fun of all. And we had various village events like making bird boxes to go in the trees around the village in the wood there. And we had great fun here. We had our own parties, of course, birthday parties, and we are in fact going to have a farewell to this house as the last event here, and the future owners are going to be installed in the house, but they are very kindly letting us use it for the last time. When we had the barn thatched, there were several things were found in the thatch and under the floor, the old floor, which was made of chalk and I think dung and all sorts of things. And we had the floor made in the original with using the original materials that they used in Elizabethan times. But this is what they found. They found some shot here from a flintlock pistol, and so there must have been a battle going on in the village. And these handmade nails and a plumb bob, I think that is, for measuring, and I don't know what's in that bottle, and I never wanted to let the genie out of it, so I didn't open it. I have no idea. It might have been hoof oil or, I don't know, beer, anything. They're all handmade objects, and a fossil. There was a halfpenny of George II. Anyway, somebody kindly made this frame, and we put them in it. So this house, which I and my husband and family have had such fun living in for nearly 50 years, and we had a tennis court at the end of the garden, and there was a children's playhouse, and one of the most fun things we had in the garden were dog shows. There were 2 dog shows, very professionally run by my neighbour, and it was quite the funniest thing I've ever seen. We had events such as the owner most like its dog, and I just feel I was very privileged, and I thank God for the opportunity of having lived here and had such fun. And I'm sure the next family will do the same.